Excuse me. All right, let's start illustrating the perspective. I've taken a black and white perspective that I generated in SketchUp, and now I'm going to try and trace it and do a black and white final version. As I'd said before, the most important thing you can do, the biggest step, is this first 5 minutes of laying out where the vegetation is going to be, where your borders are going to be. I would remember that you've got an 8.5 by 11 inch scanner, so it's got to stay within that. So let's get started. We've got some trees here. I've got a pretty big one here. So let's just get him in there. I've got a big one here. And I might even scooch over a little because he's going to be off the page. Okay, I've got some little ones down here, some of which you'll see, some of which you won't. We got another little one here that I'll just hint at. I've got a stone wall here. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of indicate somewhat of a stone wall. I want to frame it. All right, well, we've also got, now we've got the background. Notice my horizon lines through the chimney. So I'm going to want to make sure I get plenty of trees in the background. It's okay if a couple of them actually go over the horizon line. There's a lake back here that I want to hint at, so I'm going to take that tree out because I want to give it a little lake background. We know we got a line of the lake here. Let's just go ahead and put in a border for the lake and then put some trees down. Be off in the distance. I'll throw a few more behind the house. All right, got the lake. I'm going to put another tree right here. I'm going to start thinking about how I want to frame this. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring it down to about here. Chop off a little of that front. And then for the sky, I'm going to have it come in probably about there. All right, so that step is largely done. It didn't take long, but it's going to set the tone for the rest of the perspective. And I'm going to chop off that lake there. Excuse me. So now we're going to start inking it. We're going to lay a piece of trace over this. Curl side down. Oh, I see something that I want to work on before I put this. And that is the front steps. We're going to have to hint at some front steps here because there are some steps shown. So what I'm going to do, I'll make that the top step. They don't have to be much for steps, but they are steps, so and even if I just have the one, I'm just going to leave it with the one for now, and then that'll work out with this curved walkway. Okay, and now we're going to go on to the inking. As always, we're going to try and find a pen with some life in it. Oh, that one feels good. All right, I'm going to start with some of the curved items because I hate doing those. We got curved hard lines items here. Let's go ahead and get those hand traced. Good. That's good enough for now. I'm going to put in some of these major trees in the front because I want to make sure that I get those in so that I don't wind up inadvertently drawing the building through them later on. The other thing I didn't do when I did my layout was show the background stripe, but we can figure that out. I'll do that in a minute. Try and do my big trees first. Because they tend to take the most time. Love putting a few leaves around these guys. Okay, let's get some of these background trees in. Now again, when I'm doing the background trees, I want to make sure that I kind of mix it up a little and that I don't just start at the left and then draw trees over, having one in front of the other. I'll kind of alternate. Do a few here, do a few there. working on these background ones. Going to get the shore of the lake in. All right, let's get some more curves down. We got a curve for this driveway. Got another curve here. And I've got the stone wall, which is going to be, I'm not going to do all of it just yet. I just try and do some jiggles with a few little jiggles on the inside. And I'm not going to draw, I'm just kind of doing the profile of the stone wall now. Notice I haven't done any of those lines. That'll come in with texture. All right, let's start getting some straight lines in. Oh, there's another curve right there. Okay, I've got a straight line coming out here. I'm going to go ahead and play a little game here. I'm going to have my roadway just kind of hang over a little bit. We'll see what I mean in a minute. See how it sticks out a little bit there, and it's going to stick out a little bit on the bottom. It just gives it a little interest, that's all. Notice how I haven't had the lake be at the same spot as this, and actually we've got a little bit of grass going to come up there. Now we're going to figure out in a minute where that background stripe goes in. Which I should have done in step one. But there's the horizon line. I'm going to put it in there somewhat. Kind of, like I said, I like to cheat it down a little bit. But I don't have to do too much. I'll put the bottom of it right about here. And you won't even see much of it here. I'll have it come out a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Actually, I want to get the roof in before I put it in so that I don't inadvertently draw it through the roof. There's our chimney. See these little details like where this roof hits on there? It's important to get those in. It kind of helps when the geometry looks a little more realistic. They're subtle, but they do make a difference. All right, now I'm going to get that stripe in just because I want to forget about it. And here is our ground. Oh, why not? We'll put one more in there. Okay. Now let's get going with, I'm going to put some trunks on these trees. They're not huge ones. Okay, I'm going to start working on a little of the lines in the front, and then I'm going to move on to the building. Got another curved line there that I forgot. Okay, I'm going to get some windows in. Now let me start down at the top and work my way down. Putting the double lines in the windows now. Putting the double lines where the double hung window works. Again, just working on my diagonals for a while. And I'll come back in and do verticals. I'm going to do some of the verticals here right now. Now you'll see that what happens is sometimes when I put those double lines in, I forgot the bottom trim there, and I just made a little smudge. It's all right. Sometimes I have to adjust those grills, but they'll work. Double line, double line, double line. Okay, now that I've got the double lines in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the mullion lines in for going diagonal. Well, they're horizontal lines in real life, but on the drawing, of course, they're diagonal. Now I want to put that bottom trim on. Make sure it goes out with plenty of room, so we got nice overlap there. I'm doing double lines on these windows. I'll come back and do the mullions in a minute. Just going to go ahead and do the top row and then come back down to the bottom. Okay, so now I got the front windows done. We'll put those little trim doobies on. not to draw through my trees. Okay, I'm going to start doing this fussy little door with this little tiny roof. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put double lines around the door. There's a lot of lines there. And I might just adjust. I'm not going to go crazy with these mullion lines. I'm actually going to simplify them from what was there. That's okay. Now you'll see what happens as I put the double lines in. All of a sudden I have to kind of adjust some of these door lines, and that's okay. It happens. And that's fine. I'm just going to put some mullions here. I'm not even going to bother with the verticals on this. It's just a little too fussy. There we go. Excuse me. I've got these here. Let's start with the top one. Forget our little dooberries. Time to get the side windows. Now here we're going to really go minor on a lot of the details because it's I might just hint at the mullions here too because the windows are pretty small. Excuse me. I am going to want to get some trim on them, but let's start with just a basic window first. Get those down and determine how far we want to take this. Get a little trim. I might not even double line these, because they might not quite need it. That trim's a little fat, but it'll give the drawing character. So when you start getting away from the front of the drawing and you're off in the distance, a lot of the things start getting small. Okay, so all I'm going to do for these is I'm just going to put one line down the middle. I'm going to put the double line for the mullion. Not the mullion, excuse me, the difference between the top and the bottom of the glass. By the time I get shadows in there, that's all we really need. For this door, all I'm going to do is put the crossbuck in, that's it. We'll call that good. Now you'll see I'm starting to get some of the 3-point perspective, and I got to convert it to 2-point. So you do that. It becomes apparent with that line right there. It was at a much different angle than. But you can fudge it in there. All the work I went to do this roof, and you really aren't going to see much of any of it. But that's okay. And I covered up all the tanks. Yay. All right, so we've just blocked out all the major elements, which is great. It's time to start adding some texture. What I'm going to do, though, is if you remember that little drawing underneath that I had, I'm going to tear it up because I've got so many layers of trace over this that I can't really see some of my health lines. So I think if I get lucky, that'll work. Set that aside. Get that all nice and lined up. Now I can see those material lines there and in the roof, so when I go to put in my texture, I'll have better guides. All right, let's start adding a little texture. I'm gonna doesn't have to be a lot. Just going for the corners. But I will tell you that having those lines underneath makes it real handy. Oh, forgot a line there. I want to get a little down here. And another one here. Got a little smudge there, but we're going to live with it. Kind of let that dry out a little. Put a little here. And a little here. Get some on this side. We're going to call that good for clapboard texture. Now let's go to the roof, find about midway. Just like be about right there. Do half of that, which would be about right there. Do about half of that, which would be about right there. And keep going, cutting it in half every time. Try not to put the little blobs right over each other. I'll just put one more in there just for good measure. And we go halfway on the half. But we only go halfway. Good enough. This one I'm just going to leave alone. It's so small that if I put a line on it, it's just going to look like a blob. Okay, now I'm going to do a little work on the chimney. For the things that project out, I put the vertical lines all the way through. For these guys, I'm just going to hint at some vertical lines. That's plenty. Okay. Now we're going to start doing some of the freehand lines and putting in some kind of fluff, meaning I'm going to do the W stroke line around the hard to soft edges. Where the pavement meets the grass, where the building meets the grass. Oh, it's awesome when you get to see a line that you missed. Now I'm going to put, what I want to do is start to get a little more, I'm just putting little leaves and a bunch of, just a little texture and stuff around the lake. I'm going to put a little in through here where there are just dots of open area. Okay, now I'm going to do everybody's favorite, the grass. I can see the, sorry. I want to do the tree stumps. I like to put a few leaves down there to be the bottom of the trunk. I'm going to do some work on the stone wall, then I'll get to the grass. Now, if you remember, I said I just did the profile of the stone wall, so what I want to do is just kind of hint at the stones. I don't tend to go all the way back. I kind of let those define where the top and bottom of the wall is. And then I kind of dribble those lines out a little bit. Close enough. All right, so now I'm going to put some grass lines in. Doesn't take a lot of them. Now, I'm just kind of hinting at perspective by making the lines a little closer together as they go further up the page. And I'm also kind of following the perspective a little bit. See, I'm kind of going back to this point. And I know that everybody loves doing the grass. Okay, I think I'm pretty good with the texture. What's left is I want to throw some shadows on here and somewhat of a profile line. But I'm going to have to find my Sharpies. Ooh, that's a nice one. All right, start at the tops of the windows. Let's get those in. And again, this is a big point in the drawing. And that all of a sudden, everything starts to pop. I've got a shadow under here. I'm going to put a shadow here. I'm going to put a double shadow here. That's kind of a bigger overhang. I might even put a little tiny one here. Pop that out. I'm trying to be careful when I'm moving my triangle so I don't get too many smears with this. I'll let it dry for a second. I'm going to do the whole front and then I'll work my way over to the side. See if I can pull this off without smudging. Got it. I'll let that dry for a sec. Shadows make such a big difference. They're, again, they're pretty subtle, but you can already see it start to lift off when I do that. I'll try and let that dry. Trying to lift my triangle up so I don't. And then we'll put a little one here. Okay. While I'm letting that dry, I want to put some texture on the pavement. You tend to see the pavement in the sidewalk. Doesn't take much, just a couple dots. That'll do. Okay. Main thing I'm gonna put a little bit of, again, you start seeing stuff you forgot, which I do all the time. And what I want to do now is do a profile line. And then I might put a few breaks in some of these trees, but I might not. I might just leave them just the way they are. Now, the Sharpie that I'm using has a pretty good point on it. This is, when you start doing drawings at this scale, You want to be careful with the profile line. Make sure that you got a nice fresh Sharpie, because you don't want them too big. See how when I went over that little bump in the corner, this little piece of trim right here, I made it a point to jog the profile line. And there's that, brought it down, looks like we're all the way around. Well, the next test is the white paper test. Let's see how we do. And we'll see if there's anything we think is missing. I'm going to call it good. What I am going to do is make sure, oh yeah, it's going to be tight. Just want to make sure I can fit it all in the scanner, and I can. And I want to erase those lines right in there where I had to put my stripe in afterwards. Once the ink's dry, you can just erase right over it and they will go away. Good, that one's ready for scanning and subsequent coloring. This step is done.